Welcome back to When Sports Met Sarcasm. March Madness betting episode. We got Rosalind here. We got Pete Rose here, Charlie Hustle, and of course I'm here. And I'm going to break down 3 matchups for you. Most importantly, the Duke region and the Duke Blue Devils here. Why is it that no one's talking about the most obvious things that are happening with them? Multi-billion-dollar corporations, I guess, can't figure this out and talk to us about it. Also, I'm going to show you how you beat the Florida Gators, how it's already been done, who in their bracket can do it, and then I'm going to show you at the very end, I'm going to show you one matchup I'm going to go through, and I'll give you a wager for that. And also in that East region, like I said, a bonus, I'm going to give you a long shot future. I'm going to break down the whole East region bracket. We're going to go through it, and then I'm going to show you in that Duke bracket. Shocker, it's not going to be Duke. But I'm going to give you a long shot wager with actual real data, with actual real matchups to show you what's really going to happen, what you will see in that game. But we don't got a lot of time to waste, right, Rosalind? Let's go. Here we go, that East region I was talking about. This is the matchups. I went all the way down to TCU. So here we are. Duke. One thing no one's talking with Duke. They don't have their point guard, and their center has foot soreness. But for some reason, the foot soreness kept them out of the ACC tournament. I'm focusing on, in this region, where we have Duke, we got UConn, we got Michigan State, St. John's, Kansas, Louisville, UCLA, Ohio State, TCU. Here we go. Look in the very middle where I pointed the arrows. This is turnover rate defense. If someone's actually watching this and doesn't know what turnover rate and turnover rate defense is, it's simply how often you give the ball away on offense to the other team and how often you take the ball away from the offense. So here we go. As you can see, there's really no one who's good at it, except for, like we said, dark green, very good, green, good, white, average, pink, dark pink, bad, light pink, not as bad. So if we look here, the glaring obvious in that arrows I show you is St. John's. They're the only team that is quality, taking it away and not giving it away. And if you look outside of them, the only other two in this bracket that actually are okay at either one is heavy long shot TCU and UCLA, which Mick Cronin's already made a Final Four before. In TCU, Jamie Dixon's a pretty good coach. And not to get too far ahead of myself, but if you look at TCU, they actually are pretty well at offensive rebounding, and they can also get to the free throw line, which is something that Duke kind of struggled with when they played Florida State in the ACC championship. And we don't need to talk about how bad that went for them. They ended up grinding out a win against Virginia after they beat them by like 600 a couple weeks before. So let's focus on Duke, and like I told you before, what everyone's not talking about. Okay, there's 5 positions on a basketball court for a starting court. A point guard usually has the ball an awful lot. A center is usually your tallest player. Well, they don't have either one. The point guard, Caleb's out. Foster, he's out. Patrick Ngongba is supposedly coming back, but he has foot soreness, and I'm going to show you that even when he's in foul trouble, that's the only times this year that this Duke team, who is really good, I'm not here to rank on Duke. Duke's excellent, and when they are at full health, I think they are the best team in the country, them and Arizona. But they're not at full strength, so let's stop pretending like they are. So they're going to be the favorites to win the tournament, and they have a center who's injured with a sore foot, and their point guard is out. Point guard. Why am I bringing that up? Turnover rate defense. These numbers are filtered in with Duke here, showing with the point guard, they still weren't that great at it. And it's not an indictment on Caleb Foster. He's good. Look at this. Duke's turnover rate and turnover rate defense. They're 129th in the country, giving it away. And they're, 97th, basically taking it away. We are looking at St. John's, who could face them in the Sweet 16. Now you're going to sit there and you're going to tell me, well, St. John's has got to win 2 games for them to even play Duke. And I would say, of course you're correct. The problem is If you look at the byline here for Kansas, the Kansas Jayhawks, it's abysmal. It's abysmal. I also have, I'll show you on later on in one of the news and notes that I have about how awful Kansas is in the tournament when they're not a number 1 seed. And they're not a number 1 seed. They're a 4 seed. They're a 4 seed that can't turn you over. They're a 4 seed that can't shoot for some reason. How is it that Kansas can't shoot 2s? How can you not shoot 3s? How do you not take the ball away? You're 313th in the country at taking the ball away. What's going on here? They tell us, oh, it's a number 1 pick. They got the number 1 pick. So what I focused on is UCLA, because they don't turn the ball over. And I also would focus on TCU, but I would focus TCU, not more of the long shot I'm going to give you as the Final Four. TCU, since they're going to have basically a pick'em game against Ohio State and not a pick'em game against Duke. A pick'em against Ohio State and a long shot against Duke. You just take them Sweet 16. You don't need to go any further than that. So I'm going to show you real quick Patrick Ngongba, who is the reason why you want to bet against Duke. If he's not out there, we already said Caleb Foster's out. So let's see who it is in the doctor's waiting. Okay, I'm going to go through this real quick. Patrick Ngongba during the year was the staple of winning, or actually losing, because the North Carolina game that they ended up losing and the first Louisville game where he was in foul trouble were the only 2 times Duke this whole year up until the ACC tournament looked bad. And the reason being is because he was out. He allows Cameron Boozer to play power forward and not have to guard centers. We've seen Cameron Boozer bring the ball up the floor like a point guard. Now your power forward's a point guard because they don't have a point guard. Terrible. So let's look real quick here. I'm going to show you North Carolina. Duke was up 7 with 6:18 left, 88% chance to win when he fouled out. All of a sudden, Patrick Ngongba fouls out. Duke loses 71-68. Seth Trimble hit a 3 to win the game. He only played 16 minutes. Patrick Ngongba. That's who they need. Here we go. Virginia game, like I mentioned earlier. 26-point win at home. Play in the ACC tournament. 4-point victory. Patrick Ngongba. The Louisville game that I said. All of a sudden, when he stayed in the game, 9 minutes and 20, he subbed in and stayed in the whole time. They went on a huge run. It was only a 4-point game when he came back in. And then they only won by 11, but still, they ran away with it. And then the only times he did bad was in the first half because he kept getting in trouble, foul trouble. He even came in the game, got a double tech with another player, an offsetting technicals, and had to come right back out after he just subbed in. He is the reason why. He is the reason why you want to bet against this. And if you want to bet against it, the first thing you want to look at is odds. And if we're going to look at odds, you might as well go odd shopping. All right, East Region, odds. Here we go. UCLA, 22-1. Remember, we were talking about the turnover rate. They don't give the ball away. And they actually shoot the 3 pretty well. But they don't turn the ball over. How about St. John's? Like we said, they're the only team on that whole graphic where we could see the matchups. They're the only team that was good at taking it away and obviously not giving it away. So if you look at these odds here, 22-1 is sharp for UCLA and 9-1's fair for St. John's. I mean, any way you look at it, it's gambling.
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 Gamble.
It's not gambling.
Sounds like gambling.
Gambling? Who said anything about gambling?
Gambling, right?
Gamble.
Gambling.
That's all you talk about is gambling, gambling, gambling.
All right, we move on. We're going to move on now to the Florida Gators. I'm going to show you the exact reason how you can beat the Florida Gators with the data, with the matchups. I'm going to show you how you beat them, how they've lost in the past, who could beat them going forward. Maybe they're a fade in your brackets. Maybe they're a play in your brackets. But first, real quick, let's not pay the bills. Let's make sure Rosalind don't fall asleep over there. Take it away, Rosalind.
This break in the action is sponsored by Coca-Cola, the sugar drink that has helped increase the risk of type 2 diabetes to over 200 countries. Have a Coke a tooth decayed smile, and a heightened risk of type 2 diabetes.
All right, so let's look at Florida here. How you're going to beat Florida. Florida had a couple losses in the middle of the season before they went on their big run, but they were kind of against middle-of-the-road teams in the SEC. I'm going to show you who those teams were and just how similar these teams are that beat Florida. Here we go. Let's look at how to beat Florida. First thing, offensive rebounding. Second thing, free throw rate. Look to the left side of all these check marks here. Missouri, they're not a very good team. They beat Florida. What are they good at? They're really good at getting to the line, and they're really good at offensive rebounding. Wow. Let's go down to Auburn. Let's see what they're good at. Auburn. Wow. They're really good offensive rebounding too. And for some reason, wow, good at the free throw line. For anyone that can't see this, FTR free throw rate, ORB, offensive rebounds, look right in the middle, right at the check marks. Remember, green, good. Dark green, really good. So far, Missouri's checked those boxes literally. Auburn's checked those boxes. And now we're going to TCU on the bottom here. Who would have thought? Wow, they're really good offensive rebounding and getting to the line. Okay. So let's take a look at Florida's draw. All right, Florida's draw here. These are the teams that are going to be playing. Houston, Illinois, Nebraska, Vanderbilt, Clemson, Iowa, North Carolina. Obviously, I didn't go all the way down. So what we're looking at here is take a peek at the arrows. This is free throw rate and offensive rebounding. So remember, that's what struggles with Florida. They struggle with other teams that are successful at those two things. So let's look at their region, the South region, and let's see if there's anyone that could give them some headaches. Let's start off at the top. Houston. Houston is a very good offensive rebounding team. They're one of the worst teams in the country at getting to the line. How about Nebraska? Illinois. Illinois is excellent at offensive rebounding. They're also terrible at getting to the free throw line. Nebraska. Pink is bad, remember. One of the worst offensive rebounding teams in all 365 teams in the country, and one of the worst at getting to the line. I don't think you should be too worried there. Let's move on to Vanderbilt, who we all know beat Florida in the SEC championship tournament. Now, they have an okay offensive rebounding rate and an okay free throw rate. Nothing exceptional, so it shouldn't be the alarm of why they lost, which makes you lead to believe that it probably was more of focus. It was more of not caring. It was more of a lull in the tournament for Florida, like a one-off. And not only that, but if you get Vanderbilt, there's no way you can't say that that's not a revenge angle. How the heck are you going to sleep on that matchup if you're Florida? All right, so we move on. Clemson, who they could face in the second round. Right here, Clemson, not good offensive rebounding, not good getting to the line. Move on. Iowa, same thing. Wow, if you actually just look real quick at this, it almost looks like Clemson's a very good matchup against Iowa. But I digress. All right, then North Carolina, also terrible offensive rebounding and terrible getting to the line. So what conclusion should you draw from this? It doesn't look, first of all, it looks like Florida got an excellent draw. Excellent. There's literally no one that is good at offensive rebounding and good at getting to the line. Now, Houston checks the box of offensive rebounding, and Illinois checks the box of offensive rebounding, but they're awful at getting to the line. So this is a plus for Florida. So if you're playing your brackets, Florida might be something you want to lean on. And not only that, do you want to lean on them maybe, but no one is really leaning on them. Everyone's leaning on Arizona, and for some reason not talking about how Duke doesn't have all their players. In Michigan, for some reason, they peaked like they're freshmen in high school, and all of a sudden you saw them senior year and they're the same height. So let's move on here. I'm going to give you some news and notes of what I talked about earlier. But man, Florida statistics, it's pretty glaring. News and notes. Rick Barnes. It's time to rip on Rick Barnes month. Rick Barnes as a coach in the NCAA tournament has been a 5-seed or worse 16 total times. He's lost 12 times in the first round and only made the Sweet 16 once. How about Kansas that we said earlier that we weren't worried about them in that region? The past 6 times Kansas was in the NCAA tournament and not a number 1 seed, they failed to reach the Sweet 16. It's bad. They just can't win 2 games. They really struggle outside of their own court. We have reached the not your father's Final Four stats in the NCAA tournament. I'll tell you what, we're going to get a real good sample size this year, and I think you could probably put it to bed after this one. And the spreads are enormous, as you can see on the bottom. The biggest spreads you've seen all year. Now, let's look real quick here at last 10 games. Who's sinking coming into these? Well, looky who. Kansas, Nebraska, St. Louis. We're going to focus on Kansas because I did look at the Kansas Cal Baptist Lancers matchup. Let's take a peek at this thing. So Kansas Cal Baptist. Now we showed you. These are all the Bart Torvik statistics. Now here we go. Let's look and see. Kansas is the top line here. Arrow field goal percentage. 170th out of 365. Okay. How about their turnover rate defense? We saw earlier when we showed you the graphic of the East region. So they don't turn you over. So the chances that they're going to maybe get a lot of points off turnovers in this game is probably remote. Now look at the Cal Baptist Lancers are terrible at holding the ball, but if Kansas ain't going to take it away, we can call that a wash, right? Let's move on. Rebounding. So Cal Baptist can rebound. At least they can rebound. They can't shoot, but at least they can rebound. So they can rebound Kansas's misses and hopefully rebound some of their misses so that the clock can draw on longer, and then they're just going to throw up another brick anyway. All right, let's move on to free throw rate. So Kansas doesn't get to the free throw line, so those are usually free points. Cal Baptist doesn't get to the free throw line. Okay. Kansas actually defends the free throw line well, so that would actually hurt Cal Baptist's scoring even more. Let's move on. 2-point percentage. Kansas, 209th in the country. I thought, isn't Kansas like one of the best schools ever in basketball? What's happening? 209th. Okay. How about we move on to Cal Baptist? They're 318th in shooting twos. Man, I'll tell you what, you might not even need to open the hoop. How about we go to 2-point percentage defense as we just follow along here? So they're both really good at defending the two. Okay, so maybe because they did cover the hoop. 3-point percentage. Kansas can't shoot. Cal Baptist can't shoot. But what can they do? They both defend the 3 really well. Okay. We move on to 3-point rate, whatever, it doesn't matter. Cal Baptist just doesn't shoot any of them. And Kansas doesn't shoot any of them. You usually don't shoot them a lot when you don't make any of them. Now let's go on to 3-point rate defense. Well, that doesn't really matter. How about tempo? It's not like they're going to go real fast. Cal Baptist, 65.9, so they're not going to go up and down the court. So just after looking this, and then I went back to see if there's any injuries or anything I'm missing. So this is a first half under for me. Like I said, Cal Baptist, this is bad. They have one player who can shoot and scores all their points too, so you better hope he don't come off the floor. But this is under. Find your best numbers. 65.5 first half. Game total. Take both. Under 138.5. This is an ugly matchup. Ugly, ugly, ugly. That's gross. All right. That's it for the betting episode. Like I said, just go back. I'd try to go pretty quick. No one's got an attention span anymore. No one watches anything. Go back, freeze it. Look at the stuff that I have, all the data. Look at those look at the Duke matchups, the Florida. If you want to take Houston, go ahead, take Houston. But they have terrible matchups. They don't have a good matchup. They're a jump shooting team against a team that's really long. So let's go to Rosalind. Stayed awake for the whole episode again. I'm telling you what, you're earning your pay. Let's go to Rosalind. Good luck.
Thank you for tuning in to When Sports Met Sarcasm, the media that not only informs but entertains. Bye now.